welcome to ABBA. It's so good to see many familiar faces and new faces here. And I usually speak a lot, and I usually, when I'm introducing, I'm starting an event, I usually don't read. But today we are so excited, and I'm kind of nervous, and I'll read, okay? Just to make sure that I have everything that I've thought about, that I'll make sure that I'll be actually telling you tonight. So, it's such a pleasure to have you all here with us on this very, very special night. ABBA is a Brazil-US binational center, which was established in 1987. So we're turning 37 years old this year. And we have the mission of preparing children, youth, and adults to collaborate to build a better world. We do that through English language. And that's our core activity. That's what we do. That's who we are. Before we move on to introducing our renowned speaker, I'd like to thank National Geographic Learning for the long-standing partnership, and especially for partnering with ABBA in bringing Dr. Joan, Shin for us tonight. Thank you very, very much, Diegna, Camila, Anderson, and National Geographic Learning team. Thank you. I also want to acknowledge the presence of Domus Brasilis here tonight, and thank you very much for making National Geographic Learning books available to our students. Finally, it's also a pleasure to see our academic and management staff here, and also many other English language educators tonight. Thank you very much for coming. And to represent this amazing group of teachers, I'd like to invite our academic coordinator for ABBA Boa Viagem, Fabiana Fonseca, to introduce our special guest for tonight.
Thank you. Hi everyone, we are very happy to have you all here. Thank you so much for coming. We are very honored to introduce and to have Joan here with us. Thank you again, National Geographic Learning. We love you. And yeah, it's a dream come true, actually. Dr. Joan Shin is a professor of education at George Mason University. She specializes in teaching ESL, EFL, EAL to young learners and teenagers, and has provided both in-person and online professional development programs and workshops to English language teachers in over 100 countries around the world. She's also an expert in online TESOL education, and in 2021, she was named as one of the top 30 English language specialists by the US Department of State in recognition of her lasting impact on the specialist program and on the field of TESOL. Dr. Shin is an editor for National Geographic Learning book series Our World, Welcome to Our World, and Impact, as well as the host of a professional development video series that she designed for Our World. Her book, Teaching Young Learners English, co-authored with Jody Crennel, received the prestigious 2013 Ben Warren International House Trust Prize. Today, she will be speaking to us about how to integrate real-world content and 21st century literacies into our instruction to motivate our students in the classrooms. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Joan Shin.
Thank you so much for that lovely welcome. It's such a pleasure to be here with all of you. And I'm very excited because I get to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is about engaging our 21st century learners and especially engaging them in learning English. And so before I begin though, I'm just curious, just so maybe you know a little bit about me and where I come from. I was wondering if anybody has ever been to George Mason University? Anyone? Okay. Do you know where George Mason University is? No, I see people shaking their heads. That's okay. I'm not hurt. But George Mason University is in Fairfax, Virginia, which is right outside of Washington, D.C. So I come from right near the capital of the U.S., and I actually live in Maryland, and then I work at George Mason in Virginia, but we're all kind of just around that DC area. And so at George Mason University, I'm really lucky to be working with people who are aspiring teachers in a program called Teaching Culturally and Linguistically Diverse and Exceptional Learners program. So we're preparing teachers to teach English, to teach different world languages, and also how to work with diverse and special, exceptional learners. And so the whole idea is really, how do we reach our learners, no matter what their backgrounds are, no matter where they come from, you know, what types of communities they live in, how they identify themselves. All of that is wrapped up in what we think of diversity. And so that is really sort of at the heart of everything that we do in our College of Education and Human Development at George Mason University. So that's a little bit about where I'm coming from. And I'm going to talk a little bit about using real world content to motivate and engage 21st century learners. Okay. Now, how about in this room? How many of you are all 21st century teachers? Yeah, you're teachers, and it's the 21st century. Okay, so, you know, you got that. You're in the right place. How many of you are teaching children, like young learners in like sort of primary school, elementary age? And how many of you are working with teenagers or teaching teenagers? There's more. Okay, some of you raised your hand more than once. How many of you teach adults? English. Okay, how many of you raised your hand all 3 times? Okay. Yeah, I made you raise your hand a 4th time. Sorry. Okay, so actually what we're going to talk about, even though many of my examples will be for kids or for teenagers, it is really about kind of 21st century learning for everybody, maybe even including ourselves. Because if you're a lifelong learner, you always have more to learn about the world and about, you know, education and about English, right? So let's get started. And I just want to start with this notion that teaching is different now. Okay, teaching is different now. The 21st century has new demands for our young learners, right? And the pandemic even created a lot more demands on us as teachers and our learners, right? I think you would all agree. But why do you think teaching is different? Or do you agree with that? Okay, I see some of you look very young, right? So let me speak to those of us who are older. I count myself as the older group. Do you feel like teaching has changed since when you first started teaching? How is it different? Technology, okay. Mm-hmm. Has that created new demands on you as a teacher?
Students participate a lot more.
Students participate a lot more. Uh-huh. And is that because the ways in which we teach have changed as well? Mm-hmm.
They are protagonists of the class.
They're the protagonists of the class. I love that. It's a good expression. So we have more demands on us for how to manage the classroom. Any other ways that you feel that teaching is different now? AI, yes, absolutely. How many of you all have tried to incorporate AI into your teaching? Mm-hmm. It's kind of exciting, actually, right? Because like every other tool, you know, actually like a book was once a new technology, right? And actually, we still are trying to learn effective ways for using books in our teaching, right? So it's all a process, and AI is another new tool. Okay, so one thing that I want to say is that no matter what you think about how teaching has changed or learning has changed, one thing that is important to remember is that we always have to connect our learners to the real world. Because it doesn't matter if you teach English or science or math or literature or whatever the subject is, right? It's not useful to your students unless you're connecting it to the real world and they can see how they can apply this to themselves and the world around them. So we really need to make sure that we are connecting to the real world. So when I think about the foundations of almost all the work that I do, I always come back to Freire, right? We teach this in our university to our students, our education students, and I think that the grounding, though he has taught us many things about education and our approaches to education, one of the things I take with me is that, reading the word, right? Becoming literate in a language, reading the word means reading the world. And so we always must make sure that when we are teaching English, we are connecting it to the world of English. And what is that world of English, really? Well, English is a global language, and therefore, teaching English means teaching about the whole world, right? At one point, we used to think, oh, language and culture are so connected. So if we're going to teach English, we better teach about American or US culture, or we need to teach about British culture connected to English. However, English is being learned by billions of people around the world, meaning speakers of English come from everywhere around the world. And so who are speakers and users of English? Well, they're all of us and all of us around the world. So if we want to prepare students for the real world of using English, it means we need to teach about the world, right? So we want to choose materials that represent the world, right? If we're talking about kids and we're teaching our kids, maybe show kids that are around the world, right? If we take a look here in Morocco or in India, giving them a peek, a window into the world through English. So speaking of materials that represent the world, can be very engaging for our young learners, right? To see what different types of clothing children can wear. Yeah, this is in Korea. I used to once fit into one of these cute little clothes when I was little, and I maybe looked a little bit like that. I didn't mention before though, because my background is Korean. My parents are from South Korea, but I was born in the U.S. So I'm totally, American. From Turkey, from Mexico, so showing different people around the world. Introducing them to different places around the world, different ways of living, right? Here you can see treehouse vacations. How many of you all have stayed in a treehouse before? Anyone? It's kind of an exciting way to live, I guess, but there are places you can visit and introducing them to different cultures around the world. Okay, so different festivals, different ways of life. This is the way we can really expose our kids and teenagers to what's out there in the world. Thinking about even teaching a simple topic, like what's inside our house, like the rooms and the things in a house, you can introduce them to this kind of a house. Has anyone ever stayed in some place that looked like this? I was recently in Uzbekistan, and they also have such yurts. I mean, yeah, they're living in like regular, what you would think, apartments and houses and stuff like that, but this is a traditional home or yurt. This happens to be in Kazakhstan, but introducing it to, as you are teaching them that typical, vocabulary in the typical ways, but still showing learners what it looks like around the world, and then after that, of course, connecting it to their lives so that they can then speak about it. What about introducing them to this wonderful world of nature that exists out there? I look at this and I'm sort of like, you know how they say, like the Mona Lisa, when you look at the Mona Lisa, wherever you go, she's looking at you. I feel that same way about this harbor seal. Like anywhere I go, I feel like this harbor seal is still looking deep into my eyes and telling me, please, please, don't destroy my home. Okay, so learning about the wonders of the sea. Of course, as you're doing so, talking about the effects of the ways in which we live, what's biodegradable, what's not, overfishing, oil spills, things that are going to affect our world, and then encouraging our young learners to take action and create something, a poster, to try to communicate to others what we're doing to the world that we're living in. So here you can see you're making posters to help sea animals, and you can create an event and invite the community to clean up so that we don't destroy our environment. Okay, so there's a lot of things that go into seeing the world, learning about our world, and I think it's so important to connect that to students also in their lives. Okay, so this is just an example of a unit. It's from Impact, and it's called Fashion Footprints. Okay, fashion footprints. What does that mean to you? Fashion footprints. Is it making your footprints fashionable while you're walking through this sand on the beaches of Recife? Oh, what's that? Oh, your carbon footprint. Yes, exactly. So just look down, take a look at what you have on today, okay? And when you got dressed, did you think about the effect of what you're putting on today to the world around you or the environment? Raise your hand if you thought about that when you got dressed today. Raise your hand if you think your students ever think about that when they get dressed to come to your class. Okay, so in this case, this unit is about thinking about fashion, but also the effects of it. Now we're learning English, right? The present passive, right? So a lot of pesticides are used to grow cotton. Okay, so we're teaching grammar, but we're also teaching them about the effect, right? So you may or may not be able to see this. It says 450 million pairs of jeans are sold annually in the US. Okay. 20,000 tons of indigo are produced every year for coloring jeans. 9,982 liters of water are needed to produce one pair of jeans. More than 50% of jeans are made in Asia, and that the average American woman owns 8 pairs of jeans. Ladies in the room, how many pairs of jeans do you own? Only 3? Okay. Only one. 12.
6.
About 6. Okay. Men, you're a jean wearing man. Yeah. How many pairs of jeans do you own? There's the dressy jeans, right? The white jeans. Okay. 4. Okay. Men, how many pairs of jeans? You have more than 8. There's jeans for different purposes. I get it. Different colors, right? Dressy, casual, right? Okay, so think about it, right? Do most of your students wear jeans? Would they be kind of affected by this information? Okay, so the idea is you're teaching English, but you're also teaching about the real world. Let's say, imagine your students wear a lot of t-shirts, and you're going to teach them a little bit about what is going on with the production of t-shirts, right? So you might even just teach about it, right? Like, why is it called a t-shirt? Why is it called a t-shirt? Because it looks like a T, yeah, okay. And talking about popular t-shirts, also looking at ways to reduce your fashion footprint, right? And so let's watch this video and think about your students, or maybe even yourself, and how you feel about this information. Yeah. Does that make an impact on how you see the things that you're wearing? So, one of the reasons why it's so important to bring in real world content is also connecting the world to our students, connecting to their lives, trying to help them grow up and make good choices and think about making an impact, right? So they could be taking in this information and then writing a blog entry or maybe, some post on social media about reducing one's fashion footprint. What about this? Plan and hold an eco-friendly fashion show, collecting donated and found materials, using materials to design clothes. How amazing would that be? Hold a fashion show and film it. Everything eco-friendly, right? Or plan and hold a fashion footprint awareness day, making posters and brochures, conducting interviews in the community, reporting on the day's activities for the school newspaper, or maybe even on the internet, right, in a real news source. The idea is trying to make it real and help them learn that they can make an impact. Right? You can have a fashion show here. How cool would that be? Okay, so very important too. You'll see that we're not just connecting them to the real world. Through these types of projects, we're trying to connect our learners to authentic, real world communication, because that's what we know it's all about when we're teaching language. Okay, so what are ways you connect your learners to authentic, real world communication? I just want to give you a chance to share with someone next to you. By the way, if you're sitting next to someone you don't know yet, introduce yourself and share an idea about how you connect your learners to authentic, real world communication. I'm just going to give you like 2 minutes to do that. Okay? Go.
Joan, I am Eric. So, what are we different learners to news? Articles, showing you what is really happening in the world. Stuff like words, what is on TV, real problems they have at home. And what I like about real stuff, be afraid of the I teach at SCBP.
Okay.
Have you heard about it?
Attention. Okay. Did you share an idea with your partner about how you connect your learners to authentic, real-world communication? Does anyone want to share one of the ideas that you discussed? Yes, please. Here.
Fun idea was Carlita's idea. Oh, okay. She's always brilliant, and she said, we have to know about us and to learn better about the others. So that's the way we communicate about the real world. For example, how about having a carnival week?
Ah, how about it? All right, so learning about ourselves and each other and using that to promote authentic real-world communication. Any other ideas that you want to share?
We saw some videos.
I'm sorry?
Extracts of videos, pieces of videos.
that students like or stories that they like,
Oh, yeah.
and they can reproduce the stories.
Oh, yeah, great. So using videos, and they produce their own videos. Great. Any other
What
ideas?
about publishing students' projects into Instagram account?
Oh,
The
yeah.
school's Instagram accounts.
Oh, okay.
The community can see what they're doing, what they're producing.
Great. So actually posting students' work in social media with the school's account, right? And you're also monitoring it so it's safe and ethical and all of that, but having them share what they produce with the community. It's great. Yeah. Well, let's actually take a look. This is just a video where we might be engaging our learners in things like project work, group work. They're communicating, they're collaborating, they're being creative, right? They're learning how to work together. These are the 21st century skills that are so important. They're even collecting information, making graphs, helping each other point, you know. They're very cute. Yeah, I filmed those guys. I went to Puebla, Mexico, and the class was so adorable. And the guys like pointed here. Okay, so, but yes, we can get them to work together, communicate, collaborate, all of that. But also, what's so important with authentic, real-world communication is to really understand that we live in a multimodal world. I love those examples because those are multimodal types of communication, right? Because now literacy includes constructing meaning with images, sounds, videos, color, or some combination of all of those, right? It isn't just about teaching words, vocabulary, grammar points, because that's not what real communication is, right? So I, first of all, look at the left side, right? These are cave paintings in Lascaux, France, from 17,000 years ago, meaning we as human beings have been communicating using images before we could use text to communicate with each other, right? It's kind of ingrained in how we are as humans, using the visual to communicate. Jim G talks about multimodality as the rage today and the new thing, but it seems new only because we linguists have done such a poor job analyzing language. We treat language as words and grammar, but language has never been unimodal, just text, right? It's always been multimodal. So why, as language teachers, have we always just focused on the text, right? Our world is image and media driven. So our teaching should be image and media driven, right? These kinds of billboards, why is that so different from the caves? Right? We're posting images to catch people's attention or to tell a story, right? Or to communicate something. And so if we aren't incorporating this in our language teaching, then we aren't really preparing our students for the real world. So if our teaching should be image and media driven, right, we need to provide opportunities to learn English as a multimodal form of communication. It's a must. Okay. So, it's all because we do communicate in memes now, right? On the internet, nobody knows you're a dog. Yeah. That's what we call a multimodal ensemble, right? So those of you who know me and my work, I love to use music, and I've studied music all my life. And we were talking earlier, my first job was teaching music. It's crazy. So I love this word ensemble, right? Because we're pulling together like different instruments or different modes together to communicate a message, okay? So this is why we need to incorporate this in our work. So of course we know web pages are multimodal ensembles that include text, photos, and video. Right? Television programs, right? They use animation, audio, and text. These are multimodal forms of communication, right? As I said, memes are multimodal ensembles. Do you know the Hey Girl memes with Ryan Gosling? Oh yeah. It really got me through the pandemic. Hey girl, online teaching is hard, but you got this. Tell me about it, Ryan. No, I'm not perfect. So we get these messages, but it hits us, right? In some place, sometimes a funny place, or sometimes it really hits home. You're like, oh, yeah. So we can get our students to meme it, right? First, simple. Young kids can do this. So this is my dog. His name is Sherlock Holmes. And he's at the vet. But he's like part beagle and part bulldog, so his ears look like a beagle, but he was so excited to be at the vet because they have these big treats that we don't give him at home that his ears just went up. Anyway, so let's say you were going to create a funny meme to post online. What might you put there in the text? What would you put?
Nothing for me.
Nothing for me. How about me? I just put, I'm players. Yeah, okay. So video shorts are also multimodal ensembles. Okay, I don't know if you're familiar with Griffin Frenchie. At some point during the pandemic, I got completely obsessed with their channel. So here, take a look at this. It's a way you can teach some simple English.
Chocolate, apples, pears, bananas, carrots, chicken.
They're so cute. Okay, so these types of things are also multimodal ensembles, and you can work with your students to create them, right? The idea is we have to become literate in the visual as well as the textual, right? Okay, so let's take this example, right? We can explore the world through images, but if we do, we need to build students' visual literacy, okay? So take a look at this photo here. It's an adult and baby macaque in Japan, okay? And here's just a suggestion, a strategy. So if you're familiar with Harvard Project Zero, they have this whole visible thinking part of their work where there are all these strategies. This one's simple for young learners of English, and you can use it with teenagers too, where every time you approach a piece of art or photo or an image or a piece of media, you go through this routine. What do I see? I see. What do I think about it? I think. And what do I wonder about it? Okay, so with your elbow partner next to you, share what you see, think, and wonder about this image here. Okay, just a minute to do that with your elbow partner.
We're a student, right? So collect action. I see love, protection. Hygiene, which is amazing. It is. Yeah, I
All right. When I say our, you say world. Our. Okay, so what did you see, think, and wonder about this image? Does anyone want to share? Yeah. Oh, you look like you were talking. Yeah, what did you see, think, and wonder?
Actually, we saw different things.
Oh, okay, share.
I see a mother, maybe, grooming the baby, moving the tags and flea from the baby's hair. I wondered why the baby was yawning, but they thought,
I don't think the baby's yawning. I think it's having fun.
Just like
I wonder if the baby's fun or maybe having fun.
maybe having fun. Okay. Yeah. What did you guys think about the baby monkey?
Desperate.
Hmm?
Desperate.
Desperate to get away? So it was like, ah, like that. Uh-huh.
I think the mother's trying to find some bugs or some insects.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Like picking the nits,
Yeah, like-
right? Yeah.
Once again,
Any other thoughts about it? Well, this is actually to introduce a topic to discuss, which is about taking care of others. Sometimes others need your help. Be caring. But you see how, looking at the image gets your brain thinking about what is that little monkey feeling? What is the mother monkey doing, right? And we can think about taking care of others. So you can see here, right? Yeah, maybe she's picking out the insects, right? Picking out the nits. But also maybe the baby, who knows? The baby might be surprised, like that, didn't know what was happening, or might be just happy or having fun. In any case, that is what we mean about kind of visual literacy, is looking into the image. Now, let's look at another image and see if you can guess it, because even for little kids, you can get them to take a look at what's in the image. So can you guess what this is? And then you would have your students say, is it a blank? I think it's a blank. What is this? Or these?
A rectangle.
Eggs? Quail eggs. Yummy. Any other thoughts? Quail eggs? Oh, someone thinks it's a frog. All right, how about I zoom out a little bit? Now what do you think it is? Frog's kind of smooth.
It's a whale.
It's a very handsome toad, if I might say so, as far as toads go. Okay, so visual literacy, but getting students to notice what's in the image. Now, how about this? What about media you have? Okay, if I were to look at your phone, your smartphone, and I were to look at the photos and videos on your phone, would they tell a story?
Yeah.
Could I make memes out of it? Could I pull them together and get to know you a little bit? Okay, so you can also use media you have in order to engage your learners and to help your learners learn how to create multimodal ensembles. So let me give you an example, okay? And this comes from just images in my phone, or media in my phone, I should say. Okay, so shall I tell you the story of Sherlock? So here you go. Here's my little baby. Okay, this is the story of Sherlock. Once upon a time, there was a puppy named Sherlock. His mommy loved him very much. They worked together. They played together. Then one day, his mommy got married. Now he was part of a family. The children loved him, and he loved the children. But one day, the family adopted another puppy. Her name was Penelope. Sherlock was not very excited about this new puppy. Penelope loved Sherlock, but Sherlock did not like the new puppy. She kept following him around. She took up all his space. Now, I actually added new media to the next part. Oh, the volume needs to be a little bit up. Could you hear that?
Yeah.
Then, one day, Penelope wanted to play. Sherlock got angry. They fought and fought until Sherlock realized this was fun. And continue. Aww. That's your friend. And that is the story of Sherlock and Penelope. So simple to create a multimodal ensemble. You can have pictures, text, you can add audio, you can add video. I just use like PowerPoint and Google Slides. You can also use Book Creator. So if you want to see the story of Sherlock on Book Creator, then you can take a look, and it also includes the audio and the video. So easy. That's for sharing, but also encouraging your students to also use the medium they have to tell their stories. And what a wonderful way to learn about your students and even have them learn about you. Okay, so there are other ways that you can engage students, and I don't know if there's a way to make the volume a little bit louder. I think, oh, where's this here? Well, would it be here? Maybe here? Whatever. Anyway, so Chatterpix, has anyone ever used it before? So it's a way to take a picture, draw a mouth, and then you can make the mouth talk.
I am not excited about this.
Okay, here. Okay, so it's another way to engage. You can use it by having a picture of a historical figure and making the historical figure talk. You can take a picture of your partner and make your partner say anything you want to hear from your partner. You can use it for all different purposes. Anyway, this is an example of, it's a multimodal project, which is like a poster, right? Which is very common in the English language classroom. In this case, you choose an animal, you do research, you make a card, and then you describe your animal, and then to assess it, right, as a teacher, you're seeing, did the students do research? Did the students use pictures? Did students describe their animals? Did students write in sentences? But you could also use something like Chatterpix, right, in order to do the same but assess in a different way.
I'm looking at black letters and black and white letters. I understand I see now. I can sort by I can't.
Okay, so did the student do research? Yes. Did the student use pictures? Yes. Did the student describe their animal? Yes. Did the student write in sentences? Yes. But then read it, right? And then had the animal talk. So incorporating that technology in ways where you can still assess students for your language and content objectives, but they can be engaged in a different way. Another example of a multimodal project. Maybe you don't have technology in your classroom, or you're not going to let your students use their smartphones. That's okay. You could do something like designing an app, right, where students sort of sketch out how the app would work so they can use their creativity and think about how they might create an app that they want to use. Right? This one is about a superpower. Choose your superpower below. Eating well, homework help, super ideas for your classroom, and fun with friends. And then you put your name in, and then there's a superfood for the man. Okay, so that's another way which it doesn't have to use technology, but you're building skills for them to be able to use technology. Here's an example for teenagers, and I love this. This comes from Impact, and what I love about this is it's showing how we really create the animations for the work that we're doing. Okay, so let me give you an example.
Hi, I'm Dave Leonard. I'm an illustrator. I create the animation you're watching right now.
So what's the visual story behind Impact's animation creation? One day, Karen called me. She's an editor at National Geographic Learning.
Dave, can you help me bring the stories and impact to life?
I can, but it will be a process. First, I designed a mood board of various backgrounds and characters. I used the colors and images from the mood board to create a visual story in each animation. Karen had a mixed reaction to the mood board.
Hi, Dave. I think this is a great start. But can we exaggerate the style of the characters? And can we introduce cooler colors?
I created another mood board, and she loved it. For each animation, I follow these steps. First, Karen sends me a script. We talk about it to make sure that I understand how to best represent the story. Then, I create a storyboard. A storyboard includes rough drawings or frames to show where everything will appear on screen. An animator's storyboard is like a writer's first draft. And just as a writer revises stories, an animator revises animations. After Karen approves each storyboard, I create a second draft called an animatic. This stage, I put the frames from the storyboard in motion. I also add narration
Take your favorite kind.
and music to see what the animation will look like and sound like to its audience. That's you. Karen reviews the animatic and provides feedback.
Dave, can you add a guitar and change the music?
I then reach the final stage in animation creation, making everything look pretty. Making visual stories takes time, but each step in the process helps me create meaningful visual stories. Stories that have an impact.
Anyway, cool, right? This is literally that editor Karen I worked with, and that is literally how we created the animations. But the point is showing students what is the process, right? Just like that app you saw, it was like a storyboard. You're planning out the communication, and it's also a perfect example of communication, collaboration, creativity, thinking critically, working together to create something that is new and useful to others. Okay, so in Impact, we show this is how we created it. Try to inspire our young learners to do something like that, and then having them think about it and do something with that information, right? So you can imagine your TV producer who's looking for an illustrator to create animations for a show. Write a want ad for the job and explain the personality traits the illustrator needs. Right? Find an animated video online, watch it without the audio, create a new script and choose music for the video. Then play the video for the class using your own narration and music. Or let's say you're not into animation. Research a live TV show you like and find out how it's produced. The idea is to get our learners to think another way about what they're watching and consuming every single day of their lives, and maybe even inspire them to produce them themselves. Okay, now, very important. When using real-world authentic communication in your classroom, you also have to build critical literacy skills. Okay, what do I mean by that? Critical literacy. It's no longer enough to simply read and write. Students must also become literate in the understanding of visual images. Our children must learn how to spot a stereotype, isolate a social cliche, and distinguish facts from propaganda, analysis from banter, and important news from coverage. Okay, it's all about fake news, all about spotting a stereotype, okay? So, why do we want to do this? Well, we want to encourage our learners to be able to interpret what they see online, but also make smart choices in their lives, right? If we as educators are not helping our learners to make good choices in their lives, then we're not fully doing our job. So here's an example, right? It's about being an ad detective. Okay? Now think about the ads that you see all around you, on billboards, on the TV, and magazines, online. What are those ads doing? They're trying to sell you something, right? So how are they doing that? How are they doing that? There are many different techniques. Okay, so in this reading, we're trying to teach our young learners that sometimes advertisers use things like group pressure. An ad shows lots of young people, each with their own mobile phone. Their message, everyone has a mobile phone, you need it too. They also use association. Everyone looks happy and healthy in the ads. They're cool and beautiful too. Message, if you buy the product, you will be happy and cool like these people. They also use testimonials. A famous athlete says he wears a certain brand of sneakers. Message, you'll be good at sports too if you buy these sneakers. Or, because a famous athlete wears these sneakers, they're a product you can trust, right? How many of you have bought sneakers, like Air Jordans, because you thought that they were cool? Yeah. Repetition, these ads mention the product many times and say wonderful things about it. Message, you need to remember the product. Or time pressure, these ads use expressions like buy now, half price this week. Message, you should buy the product quickly before you miss a great opportunity. Okay, so these are the ways advertisers try to sell us their products. Okay, so now your turn to be an ad detective. Let's say you came across this ad. Okay, I want you to talk with your pinky partner, someone you can link pinkies with. What technique is being used? What media messages do you get from this ad? Okay, and then if you get to this third one, do you as educators see any issues with this type of media? All right, so with your pinky partner, talk about this ad.
What do you think?
Yeah. No.
Yeah. Size of our bodies. Intense pain. Anyone
All right, and detectives.
Cannot.
And detectives like Sherlock Holmes. You're on the trail, trying to find the message. Okay, so what techniques do you see used? What are you getting from this ad here? What's the message?
That you can be as skinny as the can if you drink it.
Oh, you can be as skinny as the can if you drink it.
Skinny, elegant.
Skinny, elegant,
Healthy.
pretty. Oh, healthy. That's what you're getting from it. Because of her? Yeah. You know, she's a famous actress. Do you recognize her? From Modern Family, Sofia Vergara. Yeah, it is her. Okay. So does that also change the messages you're getting from Okay, so if you drink this drink from the skinny can, you will be skinny. That's the message. If she's skinny, she's actually like not that skinny. She's very like, voluptuous and sexy. So that's another message, right? Oh, drink it's a skinny can, but actually you get another message like, oh, maybe if I drink it, I'll be sexy like her, right? What else? Any other messages you're getting?
It's healthy.
That maybe it's healthy, yeah. But is it?
And the blue background makes it more trustful.
Oh, the blue background makes it more trustful.
Because it's okay.
So you're really just getting soaked in here and you're like, yeah, I'm sold. Okay, now, do you see, as educators, do you see issues with this?
Yes.
What's the issue?
Wrong patterns.
I'm sorry?
Wrong patterns.
Oh, wrong?
Wrong patterns.
Oh, why? Why?
Because not everybody is skinny or thin, like Sophia.
Yeah, like Sophia. Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
You need to be skinny, you need to look like her, you need to be elegant, sexy.
Yeah, right. So one of the issues is, right, and if you think about not just this, but all the different images that you see around you, imagine you're a child and you're still constructing your understanding of the world and your understanding of yourself. And if you see images like this everywhere, then, and messages about being skinny, and then you look at yourself in the mirror and you might think, wait, I'm not beautiful like her. I am not skinny. I'm not this. I'm not that. And then you have an image of yourself as not being enough or not being, valued because you're seeing all these people in these images and you see society valuing them, then that can really, really have a negative effect on who you are. The other thing is, and I think you kind of said it, it's like the advertisers have already made an assumption about you, the audience, and what you think. They assume you already know you should be skinnier. Otherwise, why would you put it there? Unless you know this audience you're selling to already knows they should be skinnier. That's the only way that message works. So it's layered, right? Now, I'm going to give you some key questions. This comes from, at my university, we designed this English for Media Literacy for Educators MOOC, and we came up with these 9 key questions to approach any piece of media. In this case, it's an ad, right? So the questions are, who made this ad? Why was this ad made? What creative techniques were used in this ad? What are the obvious messages in this ad? Right? Like, oh, drink it, you'll be skinny. What do I think or feel about this ad? What might other people think or feel about this ad? What kinds of people are in this ad? What kinds of people are missing from this ad? And what are the indirect messages in this ad? So these are some key questions that if you approach any piece of media, you will think more critically about the messages that you are receiving. Now, we want to also engage our students in real-world projects to prepare them for their future. And this next one is related to what we just talked about. Okay? So in this project, and you could be doing this with your students, whether you have this book or not, you make your own ads, right? So you're asking the student to choose a product, create 2 advertisements to sell your product. Both advertisements should be for the same product, but one should be for kids and one should be for adults. And then you make a poster. Now, why would that be? Will you write the same text or choose the same images for a child if you're selling to a child versus an adult? No, you think about the audience, right? And so those key questions then get turned around. Okay, now you have the key questions, but for creating media. Now I'm going to think about, why am I making this ad? What creative techniques am I using in this ad? What are the obvious messages in my ad? What do I want people to think or feel about this product? What kinds of people will I include in my ad? And what are the indirect messages in this ad? So here, going through this process, you're deepening students' understanding of these media messages. Because as soon as I now have to create it, now I'm really thinking like an advertiser, right? So then after doing all this, the next time I see an ad, I'm going to be thinking a little more critically about it, right? Because I'm going to be questioning that advertiser because I've gone through my process of choosing an image, choosing text, and trying to make a sale. Okay. Now, I talked about, doing these projects, real world projects for students' future, but also they can make an impact now, right? So for example, let's say I have a unit about food, but you want to encourage your students, right, to make a snack, right? So you have them bring fruits and yogurt or whatever, they make a snack. Well, you can also have students, I know, everybody was like, your reaction. I love it too, like Snoopy, so yummy. Okay. We want students to eat good food. This teacher in Japan actually said, okay, we're not going to only teach students how to eat good food, we're going to have a contest, right? So they brought in the school nutritionist to teach about healthy food, and then students worked together to make a dream lunch that was healthy. And they put it together and they had a contest. And then the winner, they actually served that dream lunch at school after they chose the winner. So amazing. But they can make it, you can have your students make an impact now, right? That's really the idea. By encouraging to do impactful projects, right? Students can raise an awareness for endangered animals, and you can find ways. Like I said, a fashion show, you can have them make posters. You can invite the community to try to work with your students to try to clean up the community. So impactful projects that can help your students make a difference now. So like I said, it's all about connecting your learners to the real world. And what I want to say is this, my last message, because I'm at the end now, but using real world content is really about exploring ourselves, each other, and our world, and learning how to interact with ourselves, each other, and our world. And I want to show you one more video clip, which comes from a group of different National Geographic explorers, which I find so inspiring, and it shows us what really is the meaning of all that we're doing as educators.
Why is it important to explore?
It's part of human nature to be curious and to want to learn more about the world.
It's where you find yourself, where you find new things, where you grow.
It keeps life exciting. I mean, that's what exploring is about.
That's what drives people to like the highest mountains and the deepest crevices. I don't think that will ever stop.
We think we know this place, but we don't. We think we know ourselves, but we don't. We think we understand how things work, but we don't.
By knowing what's out there, we care about what's out there.
And if we have more to care about, then we engage more fully with our world and more fully with our human family, and we act, with love.
That's why exploration is so fundamentally important.
So to all of you who are English language educators, when we are with our students, it's more than just teaching language, right? I mean, one, we do want them to be able to express themselves and their culture in English. Well, maybe we do a pretty good job at that. But we also want to explore other people, other places, other cultures. And why? Because when we do, then we care about other people, other places, other cultures, and our world. And we want to, and we need to protect our planet and the world around us. So our goal is to inspire our students to contribute to our world. And English is a powerful global language, right? It is the language of science, technology, diplomacy, global problem solving. It's an important language that if they learn it and they can use it to communicate and collaborate with one another all around the world, they can indeed make positive contributions to our world. But we have to get them to really care about it. And so I hope that all of you, I know you're starting a new school year, and I hope that you go back to your classroom and you feel also inspired to get your students to explore the world around them and themselves. And then hopefully we can make the world a better place. So thank you all for your attention. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Joan. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for bringing such an inspirational material. Thank you for your journey as a teacher, as a professor, as a researcher, and for making this journey, turning this journey and sharing this journey into books that we use in our classrooms and that we can then connect with that, bring new ideas, and transform our classes and organizations. So thank you so much for that. And we talked that we would have some minutes for questions. We're going to take some questions. So if anyone would like to ask a question or share something, I'd like to right here to Kang.
Hello. So it's really interesting when it comes to teaching, kids and babies, because they are achieving their language. But when it comes to Brazil, there are so many kids, and there are so many teachers who do not know how to teach them, the kids, unfortunately. But I want to ask you, how can I change it? How can we change it? Because we have some issues when it comes to teaching them. And what is your opinion about this?
Yeah, it's always a challenge, right? To have teachers who are prepared to teach the students, right, that are in front of them, right? I've met so many teachers who have been teaching at the secondary level for many years, and then all of a sudden they're in a room with kids, right? And so it's not that, teachers don't have experience, don't have knowledge, don't have all kinds of competencies, but it's all about the learners that you see in front of you right now. So the solution really can only be having continued professional development for teachers to have opportunities to learn more about teaching. And by the way, students change all the time. So it isn't just about now, right? The world changes. The next generation changes, and so we always have to keep up. So I think the only solution would be thinking a little bit more long-term, teacher education programs that really prepare teachers for pedagogy and for learning about, say, child development, right? What are the different stages that children go through? Yeah, and also continued professional development, so important. It's really the only way. The other thing is building a community, right? A community of practice, because you can learn so much from your peers and people who are facing the same challenges as you. And I think that's another way to try to build more capacity to teach younger learners. And by the way, I've seen it all over the world. The age for English education just keeps getting lower, 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 lower. And there's programs where they have students who are just 2-3 years old and they're supposed to be learning multiple languages. So it is a matter of continued professional development. Yeah.
I know that it would be a topic for a new complete presentation,
Okay.
but you talked about teaching English to kids with special needs, and how is being that? How are the challenges of that? How to adapt to that?
Yeah. So first of all, that becomes, if you have like an inclusive education approach, right? This is when, if you're making the classroom inclusive for all students, that means all teachers who are teaching in those classrooms do need to be able to address diverse student needs. One of the ways that we are teaching our students who are being prepared to be teachers is how to apply universal design for learning. Because UDL, Universal Design for Learning, really hits that. It's not like a lot of people talk about, oh, I have a learner with these needs, so I need to differentiate my instruction. That is actually not the way you should approach it. You should approach it that I am going to use universal design learning principles when I plan my lesson, because I am going to make sure I am going to be inclusive of all learners, right? Multiple modes of representation, multiple modes of being able to deliver, the content. So that's, of course, as you said at the beginning of your question, the topic for a totally different presentation, but UDL. That's how we're trying to approach that. And that becomes more important because we do believe in inclusive education, right? And not separating students because of, but they just learn and process information differently. Actually, we all do. We all do. We all process information differently. Every single person in this room, right? So why are we just, singling out and taking out certain students who won't have access to education? So it's a great question. Thank you. Yeah.
Hi. I mentioned a little earlier about artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
And that's something that gets me really worried, because I see a lot of digital influencers saying, oh, just throw out that grammar book, you don't need it. And as a teacher, I know that having books in class is essential. So what do you think about this, and how are you guys, and you especially as a researcher, have been balancing the use of artificial intelligence and with books and teaching and everything?
Yeah, that field is moving fast. And so I also founded the center called Global Online Teacher Education Center. And my colleagues and I in our center, GoTech, are actually starting to do research in applications of AI in the classroom. I look at most specifically with English learners, right? How, if you're teaching English learners, you can help someone who's a language learner utilize AI tools, but for your benefit. And that's not so easy. It's just like, how we talked about, when you do internet research, you have to know how to think critically to see, is that a valid source? Is that valid information? Is that useful information? Am I going to use it? It's the same thing with AI, right? Because you could put in a prompt and get some output, and if you haven't even thought about it and you just turn it in an assignment, that might not be a relevant response to whatever you're turning in the assignment for. It might not even be language at the right register, right? For, because maybe you didn't put in a prompt that specified it, and that answer might be even grammatically correct, but it isn't appropriate for the situation. So we still have so much that we have to teach our learners, because you're absolutely right. We can't just throw everything out or our teaching out. But how might we be able to help our learners utilize AI tools to their benefit, right? So how do you make a good prompt, for something like ChatGPT, to get something that's useful to you? Then where do you go from there to use that and manipulate it, right, to make it something that you can use? So it is still, actually the field is moving so fast. So part of the work I do, also they asked me to review articles, research articles in different journals. And when I recently read one which was about AI, somebody, well, I won't talk about the research, this is not published yet, and I was reviewing it. But what I realized when I read it is it's happening fast, and the development of AI is changing rapidly. You can generate images, right, in the AI, not just text. So talk about multimodal ensembles that can be generated by AI. And again, we have to learn how to look at that critically. And, you know, it's not different from even just when the internet opened up and you can get any kind of information. But it's different in that we have to now learn how to, figure out how to use it. But I don't believe in, so some people I work with say, oh, we need to put in our syllabus, you cannot use it, and that you will get points off if you use it, whatever. No, you just have to be clear on how students can use it. So I don't know if I totally answered your question, but it's a discussion we have to have. Go ahead.
I know, just
Just
to finish up, what worries me the most is that apparently these people who have been claiming online that you don't need a teacher, you just need an app to speak English, it gets me really worried because we know that's not true, and you cannot just download an app and start talking to a machine.
Yeah.
And it's not natural. Language is something natural. So
Yeah.
that's what worries me the most.
By the way, connecting back to critical literacy, think about what something like generative AI. What are they scanning in order to come up with the response to your prompt? One of the worries actually is that there's so much information on the internet that actually they're based on stereotypes. It's based on actual sort of racist perspectives, right? You can't control what's being grabbed, right, by AI to produce it. And so one of the things is, and that's where we come in as educators, to spot a cliche, to teach students, right? Because they might be actually producing something that is actually, something that's based on a stereotype of a kind of people that then is of detriment to your students if they don't know how to think critically about it. So that's another reason why we as educators are even more important than ever, because who's going to be teaching our students that if not us?
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Another question, please.
We're really getting into it tonight. That's great. Yeah.
Thank you. Speaking of which, I would like to ask you another question, an interesting one. So, I know that it's really important to use our body language when it comes to teach kids. Unfortunately, sometimes, for example, you are talking about teaching English through the internet, and it can't happen. We can't use our body language. But in class, how do you do it? How do you use your body language? Because sometimes we cannot translate words when the students are learning a second language. So, for example, sometimes I'm an interpreter from the Brazilian Sign Language to Portuguese, and from Portuguese to the Brazilian Sign Language. So I know how to use my body language, but how do you do it as an English teacher? How to use your body language and expressions and in class.
Yeah, it's vitally important actually, right? That's the part of language that is, your body that's kinesthetic, that also with facial expressions as well. It is vitally important. One, it helps to make input comprehensible. It makes what you're saying comprehensible. Also, when you connect to gestures, and the gestures are meaningful, it actually aids in retention. So, do you want me to give you just a quick example that when I really, my mind exploded and I was like, oh yeah, gestures are so important. Okay, so for Welcome to Our World, if you're familiar, there's songs from all different countries around the world. So I was collecting songs from all different countries, and a lot of these children's songs come with gestures, right? They come with ways to connect children to the world around them. Anyway, but I was asking my mom, because she's Korean, and I was like, Mom, what was your favorite children's song when you were little? and she started singing the song. And you know what's so funny too? Is that like when you're asking an adult, like, oh, what's your favorite children's song? Oh my, they get so excited, right? Because my mom is like 70 something at the time. She was like, oh yeah. So she started singing the song in Korean. Okay, so I'll show it. Does anyone here speak Korean? Okay.
I don't speak English, but yeah.
Okay, you study it. Okay, so it doesn't matter because there's gestures, so you might be able to guess what it's about. Okay, so it goes like this. Oh, I can't do the microphone with it, but you can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's like this. San toki toki 어디로 가느냐 깜깜깜깜이면서 어디로 가느냐. And then my mom was like, oh, I can't remember the second verse. But then she went like this. And she was like, oh, sun is mountain. Sun, goge, gogedo. But her body remembered, thank you. Her body, so it's about rabbits, right? And then on top, okay. But she remembered the gesture. Her body remembered the song before her mind could remember the words. And then the gesture reminded her that the next verse was about going to the mountain. Amazing. When I was watching, I was filming my mom and I was like, wow, you know, after decades, she hadn't sang that song for maybe 8 decades, but her body remembered the lyrics to the song. So gestures are so important. If they're meaningful, if it's meaningful and connected to the language. Yeah, so important, especially when teaching kids. Yeah.
We're taking one last question.
Could I?
Sure.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for such an inspiring performance and presentation. I'm also a dog person, so I was like, oh, yeah. I just wanted to say that I work at a language school, and my students, mostly teenagers, adults, but let's talk about teenagers first. They have like 2 hours and 30 minutes per week only with classes, English classes. And whenever I go and I'll say homework, they're like, I don't have time, I'm overwhelmed, my parents don't help me, there's so much going on. And this is what maybe is the struggle for me, because I know how important it is for them to go like individually and try to learn and try to assimilate what they have received as input. So I just wanted like a piece of advice on that.
Yeah. So basically, you want them to be able to engage with the language.
Yeah.
Outside the
yeah.
classroom. Yeah. And do you have an online platform, or do you have like some chat group, or do you have ways to engage with them, or that they can engage with each other?
They can engage with each other, and there's also like there's a platform that they can access. There's the book activities. There are some kinds of projects that they can do on their own, but sometimes I feel that they are just overwhelmed because regular school also demands a lot.
Oh, I see. So
And
this
some
is
parents-
extra after school.
Yeah, and some parents they say, I don't know English, and that's how much they help, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's tough because you're also competing with school that they also have to do well with, right? So they have to study for that. Is there a way that you can, you know, not just have open-ended, like, can you help with this, but like specific things that they could interact with each other? Projects are great, but they have to be motivated by it. It has to be a project they want to do. I always love to give surveys to students about what their interests are, what they want to do. Even with a project, you have to give them choice, especially if they're teenagers. You have to give them some choice. Otherwise, it is hard to motivate them to do. And they will say things as excuses. But if they're interested in it, they will find a way to spend the time and to focus on it. So I think that's the challenge, is finding what they are interested in, being able to utilize that.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's tough though, because I know if the parents don't speak English, how are they going to help them?
Yeah.
Are we going to end on that note? That doesn't seem very inspiring.
I'm sorry.
Thank you very much for such an inspiring night. As educators, you are able to really touch in many topics and challenges we have, and you just gave an example of how we can use that in classroom. For me as an educator, it's very special to be with you, to have listened to you, to think about possible connections for the future, to be among educators, not only from ABA, but from other institutions. Thank you for coming tonight. And especially, I'd like to thank you for using and bringing Paulo Freire in your presentation. Well, that was really, I got really emotional when I saw it, and some other people got too, I know that. And is this, one last question, okay? I said,
Yeah.
but do you use it in all presentations, or was it special for Recife?
Oh, I actually use this in my presentation because Freire's work really grounds the work that I do and also my colleagues. So our PhD students in education are required to read Pedagogy of the Oppressed and to study Freire's work in order, as a requirement in our education program, because we believe his work is foundational in how we should approach teaching and the education of all of our learners. So yeah, that's the perfect way, right? Because he's so influential, and that we make all of our students to read his work and to be inspired by his work. So
thank you for that. And for us, I don't know if you already know, but as Recifenses, we are very proud of our culture and what we have. And hearing you talk about Paulo Freire and really reinforcing what we believe and what we know about his importance in education worldwide, it's very powerful. So thank you very much for that and for using it in other places. And well, I think that's a good way to end this, connecting Recife, the world, and connecting George Mason University, National Geographic Learning, ABA, ABA Global School, and many other schools represented here. Thank you again, Joan, for tonight. Thank you, National Geographic Learning, for this partnership and for this. And thank you all for coming tonight. Okay? Good night.